The Panama Canal is an artificial waterway in Panama that stretches 82 kilometers or 51 miles. The waterway connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean, which divides North and South America. The Panama Canal was one of the largest and most difficult projects in engineering history. The canal reduces the time that ships have to travel, which lets them avoid having to take the more dangerous Cape Horn route, which would take the ships to the most southern tip of South America. Originally, France began to work on the project in 1881, but had to stop due to the lack of their investors' confidence in the project due to number of deaths that were caused in the construction of the canal, as well as many engineering problems that the workers were facing. Then on the 4th of May 1904, the United States decided to take over the project and then opened the canal on August 15, 1914. The United States continued their control over the canal until the 1977 Torrijos Carter Treaties provided for the handover to Panama. After a period of time after a joint American and Panamanian control of the canal was fully taken over by the Panamanian government in 1999. Today, the canal is managed and operated by government-owned Panama Canal Authority. The canal works by having locks at each end that lifts ships up to Gatun Lake. Gatun Lake is an artificial lake that was created to help reduce the amount of excavation work that would be required to build the canal, which would be 26 meters above sea level. The ships then would be lowered at the other end of the canal. In June 2016, an expanded waterway began its operation, which added new locks that allowed the transit of new, larger ships. In 1914, the annual traffic was around 1,000 ships, but rose to almost 15,000 vessels in 2008, but by 2012, more than 815,000 vessels have passed through the canal. It takes ships around 11.5 hours to pass between the canal two locks. The American Society of Civil Engineers has ranked the canal as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. The proposal of creating a waterway across the Isthmus of Panama to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans can be tracked back to the 1500s. During this time, King Charles I of Spain asked one of his governors to survey a route that would run along the Chagre River. But back in those times, creating a route along that terrain was impossible for them. France's attempt to complete the task was led by the builder of the Suez Canal in Egypt. But they stopped the project due to a number of problems. Heavy rain was causing landslides, and they had no way of stopping the spread of yellow fever and malaria, and funding was pulled from the project in 1888. The United States purchased the French assets that were in Canal Zone for $40 million in 1902. When a proposed treaty over rights to build in what was then a Colombian territory was rejected, the US then negotiated a deal with the new government. The construction of the canal came with many dangerous efforts were focused on Culebra cut clearing the mountain range between Gamboa and Pedro Miguel. The 9-mile excavation had up 6,000 men working on it at one time. Culebra Cut was a big danger zone for the men working on the project, with many casualties caused by unpredictable landslides and dynamite explosions. The locks began to construct it as well as the pouring of concrete at Gatun in August 1909. The locks were built in pairs, and each of the locks chambers measured 110 feet wide by 1,000 feet long. The locks had culverts embedded in them that leverages gravity in order to raise and lower the levels. The project started to come to a close in 1913. There were 2 steam shovels working from the opposite directions that met in the middle of Culebra Cut in May. In October, President Woodrow Wilson sent a telegraph at the White House that triggered the explosions of Gambio Dike, flooding the last stretch of dry passageway at Culebra Cut. The canal officially opened on August 15, 1914. The final cost of the project was over $350 million. At that point in time, it was the most expensive construction project in US history. In total, 3.4 million cubic meters of concrete was used in the building of the locks, as well as 240 million cubic yards of rock and dirt were excavated during its construction. Of the 56,000 workers that were employed between 1904 and 1913, around 6,600 were reported to have been killed. but in total around 25,000 people are said to have been killed throughout the entire project due to a number of reasons. Each boat that passes through the canal must pay a toll to go through. The toll cost depends on the ship, the cargo, and the weight. The average toll is around $150,000, though ships have been charged up to $450,000 to make the journey through the canal. The expansions that were made to the canal were made so Panamax ships could enter the canal. Panamax ships are cargo ships that were built so that they could fit through the 110-foot wide locks of the canal. The new locks opened in 2016, which doubled the original capacity. This also allowed for a free flow of shipping traffic due to extra space. Today, the canal is still in use and takes more ships than ever before since its expansions in 2016. In 2020, the total revenue was $3.4 billion and around 13,400 ships used the canal. Ships are usually taken through the canal by two pilots who board the ships. The ships are also boarded by measures who have to confirm its carry capacity, and they also collect the tolls. The ship's paperwork and important documents are also inspected and recorded.